All right, so I'm going to show you how to pull a handle. There's a lot of different ways that you can make handles, and there's a lot of ways that you can pull handles. So I'm just going to show you one way to do it. It's best to use fresh clay off of your block of clay to start pulling a handle. And I always start with kind of a carrot shape where it's thick on one side and it kind of gets thin. Another thing that you can do to kind of get the clay started moving is I will slap it down on like a canvas board or some non-stick table and just kind of let it flap down, and I'll rotate that, and I'll do that a few times. And what that does is it actually starts stretching the clay before you even start pulling it. All right, so I've already kind of told the clay this is the way that you're gonna go. And I've got a bucket of water, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get it wet and start to pull straight down. So as I'm pulling, I'm just kind of wrapping my fingers around. I'm not squeezing it, I'm just using even pressure. And after each pull, I'm gonna rotate the clay around, and you should start to see the handle stretch. So it's super normal to get a little kind of a bump on the bottom, and you don't have to worry about that. If it's bothering you, you can just pinch it off and then keep going. After a while, you should start to really see a nice little handle shape forming here. As far as your hand positioning goes now, some people like to use 2 fingers on either side of their handle, or they'll just kind of pinch like that. A lot of different ways. One way that I like to do it is I make a little shadow puppet duck, and I go right through the eyeball. So my hands are like this, and the clay is going right through the eye like that. And I put that on the flat side of the handle. See if I can get closer here, so that you can kind of flatten, because the clay is then pressing against your index finger here, and you get a much flatter pull. All right, how I tend to decide how thick to make handles, as far as the thickness of this part, is I look at the rim of my piece and I try to get the thickness of the handle to be just about the same thickness, maybe a tiny bit thicker, but not much. If you've got a handle that's really thick on a very thin, dainty cup, it tends to look a little odd. And likewise, if you've got a really dainty, thin handle on a big, fat stein, it can tend to look a little bit strange as well. So once you've got a nice chunk of your clay pulled here, there's a number of different ways to then store them to start the drying process before you would attach these to a mug. So one way is to just lay it down in a curved shape and then let it sit on the side, okay? Another way, if I kind of stretch this out a little bit more, I'll pull some more from the top here. And it's always better to have more than, or too much than not enough when it comes to handles. So that's kind of what my handles look like. So another way of storing them is you can drape them off the edge of a table. So you could stick this on the side of a table and let it just hang down. You could take part of your handle here and actually begin the curve more upward like this. If I can get it to stay, that's the trick. All right, so you can get it to start curving like that. I like to start my handles drying out in a curve, mostly because that's the shape they're gonna be for the rest of their lives, so they might as well get used to it. All right, so that's how I pull a handle. You don't wanna touch your handles until they're a little bit drier, and you'll know that they're ready to attach to a mug when you can put your finger on them and there's no fingerprint that shows. All right, so I'm gonna finish pulling a couple more handles here, and then I'll attach them to the mugs.